All right, welcome to the Cosmic Busker. My name is Bobby Codey. Proof: schools lie to students. This is something I have found out. It's gotten worse and worse each decade of my life to the point where right now it's so bad that if you go to school, you graduate from university, chances are you're coming out dumber than you went into that university. Because just about everything, it seems like just about everything they're teaching in universities is fake or false or propaganda, which it seems to be. Now, I want to give you guys a gleaming example of this right now because it's based on a previous video that I had done already. The previous video I'd done already was called The Woke Left, Greek Sodomy, and Aryan Persia. I will throw a link up to it right now so that you can click on the card if you're interested in looking at that. Essentially, that video is an hour-long video. I take a look at a scholarly article by the gentleman's name is Lloyd Llewellyn Jones, if I remember correctly. We're going to get to that name just in a moment to make sure I didn't misstate it. Turns out this gentleman is the chair of ancient history at Cardiff University, that's in Wales. So this is a preeminent position he has in a preeminent university. Okay? And he wrote an article. Everything, the facts in the article are correct based on my knowledge of Persian history. But the propaganda he surrounds it with is outrageous. Just, it has absolutely nothing to do with reality. And that's what my video was about. I just went point to point through this article saying, look at this. He's just wrong. I mean, there is no other way around it. So about 3 months after, matter of fact, I'm going to show you real quick one fine example. We're going to bring it up. Let me go to, I'm going to put this over here. This is the article itself. It's called On the West Demonization of Ancient Persia. And he says that in its demonization, it has all these types of reasoning behind the demonization. And most particular, here, he says, this is from the article, he talks about this is contrary to the natural order of white supremacy. Once I saw that, I said, God, I mean, he either doesn't know what he's talking about, which I don't think is the case because it's an article filled with facts that are good. There's no problem with the facts in his article. The problem is the way he paints it. Because he's trying to say that the reason the Greeks and Romans didn't take Persian seriously, it's just contrary. It's just the natural order of white supremacy, because these Persians are brown people. He's insinuating without stating. Because the fact is, Persians were as white, if not whiter, than the Greeks and the Romans. Not a question about that. I know that. He should know that too. Okay? But he never makes mention of that, doesn't do it. He's either doesn't know that, which I find hard to believe, or he's playing to the leftist crowd. Or he has such a cognitive dissonance in his mind that he's able to hold these two completely different versions of reality in his brain, and then he puts them into the article. I don't know. It's up for you to find out and figure out, but what's going on in his mind. But I can tell you right now that it's just wrong. I mean, it's flat out wrong, and I'm going to prove it's wrong in a sense. And that the Persians were whiter, if not as whiter, than Greece and Rome. Okay, so it was about 3 months after I did that last article, that last video, where I criticized him. And the article. So it's about 3 months afterwards, and I come across a news article on salt mine mummies in Persia that they had just recently found and recently I think it was about a decade ago. So recently in large scale terms, around 2009, 2008, I think it was. I'm not sure the year. They found some Persian mummies. They were mummified because they were in a salt mine. And the salt takes all the humidity out of the air, I believe, and so it makes it very dry, and so that the body essentially desiccates and becomes mummified. And so in the salt mine, they found these mummies, and I knew right away. I'm like, oh my God, this is my way of proving that he's completely wrong. I just got to find out, show my readers what these mummies looked like. Because everybody, when they think of Persia, and when we talk about Persia, Persia is now called Iran. Iran, right next to Iraq and I think Afghanistan. I think it's between. I think on one side is Iraq and the other side of Iran is Afghanistan, and it's sandwiched between those two countries. It was initially called Persia. So why they call it Iran? It's a derivation of Aryan. Iran means land of Aryans. That's why I find it hard to believe he didn't know that it was white people living in Persia, because it's now called Iran or Aryan, land of Aryans. So it's hard to believe he didn't know it was filled with white people. They weren't just white people. I mean, they were predominantly blondes and redheaded peoples in Persia, particularly the ruling class or the elite class. So I found this salt mine mummy thing, and I knew right away. I said, I got to find pictures of the mummies, because I know what they're going to look like. They're going to be blonde or redhead. So sure enough, I'm going to share with you right now. Let's see how I can do this the best way I can do this. I'm going to have to let you guys see my desktop, unfortunately. It's the only way I'm going to be able to do this. I'm still learning how to use this again correctly. There we go. There's one of them. All right, so here's a screenshot of what the mummy looks like. Look at that. Just going to leave that up for you to look at for a few seconds here. That mummy has blonde hair. Not a question. It almost has a little bit of a reddish tinge to it too, as you can see. This is the way Persians were. It wasn't until, let's say this is 300 BC approximately. I think it's been about 1,000 years later that the Islamic conquests took place. And that's when that changed Iran, the complexion of Iran, to a little bit of a darker skin color because of the Iranian conquests. So, this professor should have known that. And for him to say that the reason the Greeks didn't like the Persians is because of white supremacy and all this stuff, it's just contrary to everything real in history. But they don't care. They're giving your students propaganda, and they use words that have no real meaning, other that they can be applied to everything around them to just condemn everything and bring everything down like a house of cards. That's what I've seen, and that's what I begin to think about universities more and more, that they are essentially attempting to destroy the foundation upon which they stand. And no matter what happens, that will be a tragedy for the universities. I don't think they're going to survive much longer because of this, flat out. So now here's where it gets interesting, and I want to expand upon this and use this to show my viewers not only is this white supremacy and all this white, black, and skin colored nonsense. Not only is it almost all propaganda and ridiculous, but it is an intentional division tactic. And I want to show you something that actually should unite us, in particular, those of us in this half of the globe, on the North and South America, and particularly the United States, because that's my great concern with what is happening in the United States right now, because it has a tragedy and it could have very tragic consequences for the people of the United States if we keep up with the track we are currently on. So here's what I want to do right now. I'm going to cut away I want to show you guys a couple videos actually, and these are videos of DNA analysis. And what I'm going to try to show you is that there's so much more in common that we have here in the United States than we have in different. And I'm going to prove it to you guys with a few videos that are both suggestive and determinative. So I'm going to cut away right now. This first video I'm taking a look at is it's a YouTube user. I think his name is Decimali. I'll give a link down below. What he does is he takes ancient hominids, like they found a body, buried like 50,000 years ago, a long time ago, and he'll take the DNA analysis of it and send it to like MyHeritage DNA or some DNA analysis sampling company that tells him what percentage, like, 40% of you is from Ireland, 30% of you is from Russia, 20% is from Peru, all that stuff. He takes these old 50,000-year-old DNA samples from people who were existing way before history started. History started 6,000 years ago. The one we're going to do is from 37,000 years ago, I think, and the other one is about 8 or 10,000 years ago. So both of these that we're going to take a look at in a moment are prehistory. But he takes this DNA and sends it to a DNA company, and they tell you where these people are from. Well, that doesn't quite work if it's tens of thousands of years ago, because DNA has changed so much, or the locations of DNA has changed, in the sense that if they test somebody 50,000 years ago, they may come up with 10% Peruvian, 10% Alaskan, 10% this area, 10%, but that doesn't tell you where that person is from. What it can do, however, is tell you where his peoples migrated across the planet. Okay? It will tell us where his genes eventually went, not where they're from. So 37,000 years ago, we're going to be looking at in a moment, when it says his DNA is this percentage, this percentage, this percentage, this percentage, it's not saying where his ancestors are from. It's saying where his descendants went to, essentially. So we can find out a lot from this, in my opinion. It's not scientific, but it is suggestive. So don't take it as gospel that this is where the people went to, but it is strongly suggestive with other evidence that we can accrue. So I'm going to stop right now, and I'm going to bring up those two videos. This first one we're going to look at is what's called the Gravettian culture. It's very interesting. This video calls a Gravettian as being a Cro-magnon. I have also heard that the Gravettians, or some of them, may have been part Cro-magnon or human, essentially the same, part Neanderthal. I don't know that that's the case with this one. I don't think it is, that this particular DNA sample from this 37,000-year-old Gravettian was pure Cro-magnon. But we're going to cut right now to that video and take a look. I just want to stop right here. This is obviously just a reconstruction. Doesn't necessarily mean this is exactly what this gentleman looks like, but this is a reconstruction of what this 30,000-year-old hominid found in a European, Asian area looked like. Note that he doesn't quite, you can't say, oh, he looks Caucasian or he looks Asian or he looks African. He doesn't really look like any, or he could be a mix of all of them. That's because 30,000 years ago, there were no of the race. The races didn't exist as we know them right now. There weren't black Africans, white Europeans, red American Indians, or yellow Asians, and I use that in quotes because obviously those aren't real colors, but colors that are designated to them. They did not exist. Did not exist at all. Almost certainly. Based on the DNA we've been able to find. The current pool of races that we have is a very recent phenomenon that started at least after 10,000 years ago, if not a lot later than that. So, but the reason I'm pointing that out is that he's a Cro-Magnon. This is essentially what a Cro-Magnon looked like, allegedly. When we take a look, I hate that little line going through my face. When we take a look at the DNA example, what we're going to find is where the Cro-Magnons went to. Okay? And then I'm going to explain my theory and other people's theory as well about how the races got to where they are. Because it's not what you think. And it's not the out of Africa theory. The out of Africa theory has been proven wrong time and time again. It just hasn't hit the masses yet. So let's let this continue and we'll talk about that in a moment. You can see it says he's Iberian. He's 20% Iberian and 20% South Asian, 15% East European, which is actually where he was found. He was found in Eastern Europe. Where else does it say? Baltics. Now watch this. And 9 more ethnicities. They're going to go over those ethnicities right now. And this is really important because this is gets at where we're going, who these Cro-Magnon were. They weren't white, they weren't black, they weren't yellow, they weren't red, they weren't any, they weren't Asian, they weren't North American, indigenous. We're going to take a look right now. They're going through all the different locations. It's Iberia, there's the Baltics, there's Scandinavia, South Asia, which is India. And here, we got Inuit. He talks about the Inuit were essentially the Eskimos for the most part of northern North America, Canada, Alaska. Okay. Filipino, North African, we have as well. Not only North African, Central African, Kenyan, Nigerian, Melanesian, Mesoamerican, and Andean. All of these different. Now, the question becomes, how in the world, let me put this up here a little bigger, how is it that all these different DNA comes about? I'm trying better. Here's where I'm going with this, where the Cro-Magnon is out of Africa theory is wrong. I'm not gonna. Maybe I'll do another video sometime in the future about that. But there's an abundance of evidence that it's wrong. DNA evidence proves it without a shadow of doubt. It's just that people refuse to acknowledge what's staring them right in the face. What it appears happened is this Cro-Magnon man, again, he wasn't white, he wasn't black, wasn't yellow, wasn't red. He was his own essential race or species, whatever. They dominated the planet tens of thousands of years ago. Before, we'll call it Noah's flood. It's also known scientifically as the Younger Dryas. It happened about 10 to 12,000 years ago, the Younger Dryas. There was a cataclysm on the planet. Some people believe that the sun went crazy and burned everything up on Earth. Others believe that there was a massive flood caused by the end of the Ice Age. All these glaciers melted, raised the water levels on the coasts, and flooded all the entire planet. Whatever happened, that marks a boundary between before and after, because it wiped out so much of what went on before. And what I think went on before, and many other people do, is that these Cro-Magnon dominated the planet. You might consider them the Atlanteans too. You know, we've heard of Atlantis pre this flood. They were the people of Atlantis. And they essentially spread out all over the planet. And in spreading all over the planet, they mixed and mated with different hominids that were spread all over the planet. They came across Neanderthals, mated with Neanderthals. Their mating with the Neanderthals, what became Caucasians. They mated with Neanderthals and Denisovans further east in East Asia. That's what became the East Asians, Chinese, Japanese kind of, Koreans, Southeast Asians, like Filipino and Indonesia. These Cro-Magnons went down to Africa. They mated with another species that we don't know about who it is, because we know that Africans have this archaic species, just like Caucasians or Neanderthal have some little bit of Neanderthal. Asians have a little bit of Denisovan and Neanderthal. Africans have a little bit of this old type of hominid. We don't know what it is, though. Some people think it's Homo erectus. Others think, I'm not sure what the other one is. Homo erectus, maybe Homo habilis. I'm not sure. But Africans have this little bit too. Well, guess what? That's Cro-Magnon went to Africa, mated with Homo erectus or whatever this other mysterious unknown African hominid is, and created Africans. Okay. That's how all these different races, human races, got to be. It was the Cro-Magnon first. The Cro-Magnon spread all over the place, mated with all these different hominids they found, and created all these different races on our planet. So now, and that's what that shows me. And that's why you have this Cro-Magnon in Europe, and then it shows him with African heritage, South American heritage. How? Because that's where all of the Cro-Magnons went to. And they spread their genes all over the place, all over the planet. And that's exactly what you just saw. Okay. So now what I want to do is take a look at somebody from, I believe they're Yamnaya. It's from the area of Ukraine. We're going to take a look at their DNA as well. And then we're going to wrap this up into one whole big cohesive whole. So let's stop right now. We'll take a look at that other video. Now this is for the Yamnaya. The Yamnaya were about 8,000 years ago. I'm just going to stop it right there because I want to talk about the Yamnaya. Now, what the Yamnaya did, this is from about 8,000 years ago. The Yamnaya spread all over the Indo-European continent. They ultimately are the forerunners of what became the Aryans, which ultimately became the Caucasian race. They moved into Europe and displaced the indigenous Europeans. Okay, they essentially displaced. Where else did they go to? Well, essentially, ultimately, what they did, and where I'm going with this, is that they spread all over the planet. Okay, as you see, here we got the part Baltic. They says Finnish, Scandinavian, Irish, and they also have them with two more ethnicities, which is the Inuit here, and then Native American. The reason they're all over the place like this is because they spread all over the planet, just like the earlier Cro-Magnons had, but they didn't mix in the same way the Cro-Magnons did, and didn't create new races just like the Cro-Magnons did. But they did spread all over the planet. And one of the reasons that I'm showing this is because they're the bearded people. Okay, ultimately, anybody with a beard is descended from them, in my interpretation. Okay, the only peoples who have beards are Caucasians. If you see a person with a beard, they are a Caucasian. Now, this stems from somewhere, and I think this stems from the Yamnaya. But I want to show a few things here. It's not only not shared by scholars, but I don't think they're even aware of it. For instance, here's an indigenous European. They don't exist anymore. Okay, they all died out. Europeans have a small percentage of DNA from these peoples, very, very, very little. These were hunter-gatherers who lived in Europe. They never developed agriculture. They lived there 10,000 years ago up until about 4,000 years ago, before they eventually just faded into nothing and got subsumed by other cultures and other people moving in. But notice that when popular mainstream science, they depict the indigenous Europeans, they give them a beard. I'm certain they didn't have a beard. Certain. The only peoples who had a beard were the Yamnaya and their descendants. Okay? Now, why that is important, what I'm leading to ultimately with that, is that when you take a look at the United States, North America, South America, what do you see? Let's go LeBron James. Let's take a look at a picture of LeBron James real quick. Guess what? Yeah, he can grow a full beard. I know, but LeBron James, such African Americans who can grow a full beard. Why? Because they're 25% Caucasian. Take a look at, I should elaborate. All African Americans are on average, about 25% Caucasian. That's why most of them can grow a beard. You look down South America, almost everybody, or a large portion of the population in South America and Central America, they can grow a beard. Why can they grow a beard? Because they're Caucasian. And among Hispanics, I believe the average is about 2/3 Caucasian. So essentially, what you have is these Yamnaya descendants. They've spread all over the planet, and in particular, this half of the world. This half of the world, North America and South America, it is almost all Caucasian, because they're, as you can see, they're almost all bearded. The bearded people spread out to this half of the planet, and much of the rest of the planet as well. The peoples who can't grow beards, Africans, East Asians, Southeast Asians, American Indians, those are people who can't grow beards. But my whole point with this is that, we have a lot more in common than we do dissimilar. And it's not just non-bearded, but I'm making this as a point that skin color is something that is used to divide. It has nothing to do with reality. It is more of a cultural artifact than it is a biological artifact, and it's ridiculous. And the fact that we can all grow beards shows we're all descended from the same peoples. That's the point that I'm trying to get at. Skin color is rarely something I look at when it comes to evaluating people or cultures. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you got something out of it. Sorry for all the little issues I had recording this. That little line, or is it right there, that goes up and down my face? I gotta fix that. But this is my first video, new location. I gotta get all the wrinkles out. So thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. If you want to help me out, I got a PayPal down below. Could appreciate the assistance. Get maybe some new equipment, better camera, so that you can see my goofy looking face a little better. But other than that, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And thanks for watching. I'll be having more videos up in the near future.